Hey everyone, just jumping on real quick to say that not a new episode this week. I've been dealing with the flu for a week and a half. Kit schedule's out of control because of work and Black Friday prep, all that. So we'll be back next week with a new episode, and enjoy listening to this Patreon episode on Morbius in the meantime. Michael Morbius had one job. Don't talk about pinkies, and he failed.
That is not real.
I told you I'm making one up.
Oh. I didn't make mine up. Mine is just stand back. I am beginning to morb.
Oh, I was looking at the actual ones, and one of them was like a new Marvel legend or some shit, and the other one was like the line between good guy and villain are blurred or some bullshit like that. It was real stupid. I prefer the pinky one.
Gross. I have to think that was like him improvising. Like, who the fuck puts that in I don't know.
I laughed so hard.
I was confused by it. I was like, who? Excuse me?
It's so funny. Yeah, so we are talking about 2022 perfect baby boy, Morbius, for reasons probably unknown to both of us.
Well, if we both had to watch it, then something good needs to come out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, overall, I don't think this was as bad as everyone made it sound. It's not good, but like,
no,
this was not like, I was expecting this to be like absolute dog shit based on the way everyone I follow reacted to watching it, and my overall reaction was that if this exact same movie came out in 2001, everyone would have been like, this is sick, but it follows like coming out post MCU and post like the Nolan Batman movies. Like, this type of comic book movie doesn't work anymore, but this coming out and like around the time of, say, like X-Men or like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, I think this would have been like a hit.
Yeah, I agree with that. And because I think this movie, to me, feels like, I hate to say this, but it feels like something I expect from like a DC live action. Right. Where it's not good by like any stretch of the imagination. It's not trash, but I mean, ugh. I think if there was a few things that I would change about it to where I would absolutely agree. I think if it came out in the early 2000s, it would be fine. Because, like, to be very fair, the idea behind it was good. I think and like, to be fair, Morbius is kind of like, I don't really know like a ton about Morbius as far as like the comic book goes, but I like the powers. I like the uniqueness of what he's struggling with versus like most other heroes or or whatever you want to call him, because like he doesn't really do anything that makes me feel like he's evil or not evil, kind of. But like, I think his powers are unique, and there are some things in the movie that I think were cool to me, but overall I think the downfalls are
Jared Leto.
First of all, let me just like take a step back and say I hate Jared Leto so much. It's bordering on Matthew Broderick, and I sometimes struggle which I hate more, but I absolutely hate him. I've never been a fan of his. I think he's creepy. I don't think he can do anything. And when I first saw that they were making this movie, I was like, okay, that could be really cool. I obviously love the idea of like I love bats. I love a vampire thing. I love a twist on it that's not bad, so it's not like Batman, you know, where this guy is like genetically altered, whatever, to be like half vampire bat or whatever. And then they're like, oh, Jared Leto's going to be in it. And I was like, absolutely not. This is a no for me off the bat. I can't even, I'm not kidding. Like, I can't stand looking at him. I hate him.
It's strange, just because, like, he can be an okay actor sometimes. And, like, especially back in the day, like, he was a pretty decent actor. And then, like, whatever rock star bullshit happened to him, that he just, like, decided that he was going to become a cult leader and be just a fucking weirdo. Like, just, I don't know. He's a bummer to watch now.
Yeah. And I think he does some weird things with the character that I feel like are probably improvised. Like, the stinky pinky thing is one. There was another thing. I can't remember what he was talking about, but it was, like, literally right before he was about to inject himself with the, like, bat DNA, and he just goes off on, like, a tangent to her about something that I literally looked at Chris and I said, what the fuck is he talking about? It just was, like, so weird. And I think the one actual real misstep for me in this movie is the CG faces.
Yeah, I think that was his idea too.
So terrible. Like, not only are his bad, you know, they do this like weird stretchy mouth thing, which like I don't care for. And I think it looks really bad. And it's like not even as bad on him as it is on Matt Smith. I thought Matt Smith's face looked fucking terrible. Yeah. And like, is this a PS1 game? Like, what? And my other problem with the movie is I think the pacing's really bad and the editing is really bad.
Yeah, that was I texted you and I was like, oh, thank God this is only like an hour 40, and you were like, I got a hot take on that. Like, it should have been longer, because like things just sort of happen that don't, like, I'm not even gonna say spoilers because I don't think anybody gives a shit if this movie gets spoiled for them.
Probably not. Like, but spoilers. Matt
Smith becomes the vampire and is just like immediately a bad guy.
Yeah.
No fucking like you get no. He's like a meek person with like whatever the same disease I believe that Jared Leto's like Michael Morbius is supposed to have, and he's just like comes to visit him in prison or whatever after Morbius is arrested, and like just is a bad guy. And I was just like, what the fuck? Like, how? Like, no character building. Just all of a sudden he's not evil. A good guy. And then like, oh my god, the post-credit scenes make zero fucking sense.
I was completely. That's why I like texted you to ask if you had seen it, because I was like, I need to talk about this. What is this? Why?
Well, so I think the first trailer they released, Adrian Toomes was in the trailer.
Uh-huh.
And I believe, and I guess that there was stuff where like they'd show like there were clips of like Morbius like walking in New York City or whatever, and you would see like Spider-Man graffiti and shit, and all of that was cut out. I think because of the delay. So this was supposed to come out like, I don't know, April 2020 or some shit. It got pushed back until this year. It kept getting pushed back due to like COVID and like all that other shit. Eventually it got pushed back to follow that Sony, I guess, had the idea after No Way Home was doing so well. They're like, all right, we'll push it back 2 more months. And, like, we're hoping, like, the No Way Home kind of, like, fever will rush into Morbius, which I don't know why, but...
You got me.
Like, so they ended up having to go back and do reshoots of stuff because whatever they had with Tombs and like just kind of Spider-Man like lore or whatever no longer made sense because of what happens in No Way Home. And I don't know, like I don't understand how, like, because in No Way Home the idea was that all of the people were coming to the universe Adrian Toomes is in because they know who Spider-Man.
And not vice versa.
Yeah, so I don't understand why he went to their world. And then, like, all of a sudden, like, one of the things I was reading was someone talking about how they believe Sony doesn't understand what, like, the mid and post-credit scenes are for. So, like, you know, Adrian Toomes, like, blips over to whatever universe this is in, and, like, they're gonna let him out of jail because technically he didn't commit a crime in this universe.
Yeah, he just showed up in prison for whatever reason.
That happens, and it goes back to more credits, and then immediately cuts to another post-credit scene, which is Morbius driving around fucking the middle of nowhere, stops somewhere, and then all of a sudden Vulture shows up, and it's maybe Michael Keaton's voice. If it is, it's extremely processed because it's under the Vulture mask. You never see his face. And he's just like, I got an idea how to deal with this Spider-Man. We should form a team. And Morbius is like, I'm listening. So, like, all of a sudden, Morbius, like, hates Spider-Man, too, for, like, inexplicable reasons.
I don't think he said Spider-Man. I think he said something like, I think you and I could do some good together. And then he was like, I'm listening. But this is why it made no sense to me. I was like, why is he here? How did he get here? And Chris was like, Chris has, like, watched some of these movies with me, but he's like, because of Doctor Strange's spell. And I was like, no, that doesn't make sense. Because, for one thing, I guess number one, I don't know when Morbius is supposed to take place. Like, before or after, I don't know. Either way, the spell was undone. Also, I thought Doctor Strange specifically said that, like, people were coming into Tom Holland's universe, but not the other way around. They, like, sent them back or whatever. So it makes no sense to me why he was transported to another universe, which is Morbius's universe. And then the other thing that confused me was when there's one point where Morbius is attacking somebody and he says, "Who are you?" And then he says, "I am Venom." And then that, like, sent me spiraling because I was like, why?
I heard that and I was like, that's a weird line. And the only thing I could assume is, like, maybe Venom, because I haven't seen the Venom movies yet, so I'm guessing maybe Venom is a known, sort of maybe, like, known amongst, like, the criminal world or something in those movies, and, like, I'm guessing he was trying to, like, be like, I'm Venom, to, like, so, like, when they go to the police, they aren't looking for him. But it makes no sense, like...
Here's why that confuses me. So there are like crossovers with Morbius and Venom, like, in the comics, right?
Yeah.
And so I think one of the things that was confusing me, I was like went down a rabbit hole, was trying to figure out like why this happened. I was like, I don't understand any of this at all. And people were basically just saying like, oh, well, like Morbius knows who Venom is, which why he just turned into Morbius. Why would he know who Venom is? Whatever. And then they were just like reaching, basically saying that they were just trying to tie in Sony universes. So the people would know that Morbius and Venom exist in the same universe, which again doesn't make any sense, because this is why I'm also confused, because at the end of No Way Home, the after credit scene obviously is Venom, Eddie, whatever, is like at a bar. Then when he gets transported back to his universe or whatever, part of the symbiote's like left behind, right? Which is awesome. So that doesn't make sense to me because I haven't seen the second Venom movie, but I saw a screenshot of it. Or is it the first one? In one of the movies, I could not finish the first Venom movie.
I keep meaning to watch them, but I don't think they're free anywhere, and I refuse to pay for them.
Yeah, so there's a scene where Eddie's watching TV, and he sees Peter Parker Tom Holland being outed as Spider-Man. So I'm like, how does that make any sense if he's in the same universe already? Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
well,
it doesn't...
It's weird. Like, I'm curious how much Sony and, like, Kevin Feige are working together in storyline stuff. Like, I wonder if Sony's, like, if, like, MCU stuff has, like, if there's no input from, like, you know, actual kind of Disney Marvel into, like, what is happening in, like, say, the Venom movies, right? Because
that's what it feels like to me.
I saw something on Instagram that I couldn't tell if was real, which was that scene you're talking about, and I was like, I can't tell if they just replaced what was actually on the TV, but they were talking about how, I guess, in, like, an original cut or maybe, like, original script for No Way Home,
maybe it was cut out.
What's his name? Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man was going to get stabbed and was about to die, and the symbiote is what saves him.
Yeah.
Before going back. And then they just did, like, whatever the fuck they did at the end of that, which that's, like, the one thing I had problems with, is he gets stabbed and they're just like, oh, he's fine.
Yeah, see ya.
So,
I love
like,
you.
I'm guessing that's what was, like, originally going to take place, and, like, I don't know, like, it's very weird. Like, they should just fucking let Disney have these characters back, because whatever Sony is doing with this villain universe, like, is not working.
Yeah, it's like, if anything, if we're gonna try and say, like, oh, it's just like Easter eggs so that you know that it's part of the Marvel universe or something like that, it was, like, more baffling than I was happy to see. Vulture showing up really threw me.
Who?
Vulture.
Oh, Vulture. Yeah, see, like, that was the one thing I knew about the movie, was that Vulture was in it. And then, like, once it came out, I saw that it was a post-credit scene. So I was like, I'm never going to watch this. I'm just going to look up what
oh, yeah, I had no idea. I had no idea.
Which, like, I just make Morbius, like, I don't know why they made all of these characters a different universe than, like, Tom Holland Spider-Man, when their original idea was to build Sinister Six and have them fight Spider-Man. Like, just have them, like, I don't know why Tom Holland is not in these fucking movies.
I don't know.
Even if it's just to, like, stop them towards the end. Like, it's whatever the fuck Sony's plan is for this, like, villains-only movie universe is baffling to me, because, like, sure, people like the Venom, at least the first Venom movie, but it's like, I don't know, like, Morbius as a solo character can't carry his own, like, a solo movie. Like, he's just not that interesting of a character without, like, Spider-Man or Blade or kind of, like, one of the other Marvel, like, horror villains they're usually kind of hanging out with. Like, like, Kraven the Hunter coming up had me so excited at first, because I fucking love Kraven the Hunter, and I love, his name's Aaron something. The guy who's playing Kraven is, like, the dude from Kick-Ass, and he played, like, the Quicksilver in Age of Ultron.
Oh.
And, like, I was like, that sounds awesome. And then they started talking about what, like, he started talking about specifically what, like, he was like, yeah, Kraven's, like, a conservationalist and blah, doesn't like people hunting. And I was like, what the fuck are they doing with this movie? So now I'm like, oh, great, this is going to be garbage too. But it's like, Kraven isn't a character that can, like, support his own, like, Venom can support a full movie. Yeah. Because there's enough there. Like, the rest of the Sinister Six can't. Like, if, like, the only way a Vulture movie could possibly work is because it's Michael Keaton, and Michael Keaton is pretty much always good. But, like, I don't know what you do with him as a storyline. And so, like, I just don't understand what they're doing, and, like, not having Tom Holland show up in any of these yet makes no sense to me. Because, like, the thing with Morbius that works is his interactions with Spider-Man.
So, like, are they trying to allude to like Morbius is going to be part of the Sinister Six.
Yeah, I think the idea that from what I remember, was going to be Vulture, Morbius, Venom, I think Carnage maybe. I don't know what they did with Carnage. I don't know if Carnage is in it or not, but Kraven. Fuck, I forget. I can't remember if they said that, like, for some reason I feel like it got changed after No Way Home, and like
yeah, I think so.
I don't know. Like I've seen numerous plans for it, and like now there's like a fucking Madam Web movie for some insane reason happening. Like I don't know what's going on at Sony with these, because like as far as I'm aware, Tom Holland is still not involved, and he flat out said at certain points, like during I think like No Way Home promotion cycles, or maybe after Morbius came out, was just like, yeah, I look forward to like having like doing a movie where it's like me versus Morbius or me versus Venom or whatever. I'm like, why the fuck didn't you just do that in the beginning? Like, I don't understand this plan at all for like a villain cinematic universe that just leads to Sinister Six.
I also like just don't really understand why Morbius would be fighting Spider-Man, because like, again, I don't really know much about him as far as like the comic goes, but in this movie, like, his intentions were pretty good. He's trying to cure like a previously uncurable disease, right? And so he's gonna go about it in a fucking crazy way because it's he's a whatever.
Yeah, it's very like Doc Connors sort of
right,
lizard thing.
But then like he obviously, when he vamps out, he kills people and drinks their blood, but he can't control it. And then throughout the movie, he's like so set on like not hurting people. He's trying to stop. I'm not really sure. I don't understand the Milo thing, how they were like calling Lucian Milo. I don't get that. But
he was well, finish your thought. I'll kind of tell you what I think I gathered from him.
And so it's like he's trying to do his best to like minimize damage, where he's like drinking some kind of fake blood that he
creates an artificial blood
created
like, for right. Like I guess like blood donor sort of whatever thing.
Right. And so then he's actively trying to be a good person, hence why I don't feel like he's a villain, and also that's why I don't understand why he would be fighting Peter Parker as a villain. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Also, he's like why would he want to... I mean, obviously he probably at this point doesn't know that Vulture is like kind of a criminal, right? And he's like, yeah, I just want to do cool shit or whatever. It makes no sense to me, like, unless they're trying to say like whatever he goes through changes him. Like, I just like don't understand. He doesn't seem like a villain to me, I guess
So the weird thing about this movie is like they sort of, at least from what I remember, kind of do a pretty decent job of telling the Morbius like origin story. Mm-hmm. Like it's like I said, from what I remember, pretty comic book accurate of like he was struggling with this disease, like does whatever fucking thing with like these vampire bats, and like it becomes a thing where like he thinks at first that he could just deal with like the artificial blood, but like the effects kind of start lasting less, and then he just knows he has to resort to actual human blood to like actually deal with this vampirism. And like I forget who it was in the comic books, but they kind of replace it with that nurse, but then you find out like Milo ate the nurse and all this shit. Like he feeds and kills like one of his best friends or whatever in the comic books, and then kind of just goes on the run, which is, I guess, is what's happened at the end of the movie. Like before he sees Vulture, he's just out somewhere else, like kind of travels town to town. And then there's like storylines where he's like, I don't know, living with fucking Ghost Rider and doing shit. Like he's pretty much I think he had a solo run for a little bit, and then it's just mostly team up shit after that, because like the character's just not interesting enough to really sustain like long-term storytelling by himself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because, like I said, like they kind of do a okay job of like transferring that origin from the comic books to the movie, but it's just, I don't know, like we kind of said earlier, like the editing makes it so ridiculous because shit just like happens with no setup, no like reasoning behind it. All of a sudden they're just like, yeah, just Matt Smith's the bad guy, and you're just like, oh, okay.
The thing that really bothered me about that is that so we've kind of been talking about it for a while. So like, if for some reason you haven't seen this movie, the plot is Michael Morbius has some kind of like disease where he's not very strong, he can't walk very well, and he has to get blood transfusions like 3 times a day. And so he gets moved to this, when he's like a boy, he gets moved to this like house for sick children or whatever, and meets Lucian, who they just call Milo the whole time. And so he meets Milo, and they like form a friendship or whatever. And then the doctor there realizes that Michael is very smart. And this like scene of them being young, I feel like goes on for a long time for no reason. And so basically the doctor is like, hey, you're really smart. I'm going to have this like people come and tutor you or whatever. Then it just switches to him like winning a Nobel Prize, which he turns down for whatever reason. And I don't know if they ever tell us like what it's for, so we don't even really know like what he's doing, because we don't find out about the artificial blood thing till like the end of the movie when he's being like chased by cops for killing people or something. So like that's weird. Then there's like a scene like spliced in somewhere where he's just like at a bat cave, and he's like he like traps these bats, and then it's just literally like, hey, I have this cure, I'm gonna take it. And I was like, what is it like gives you whiplash almost, because there's like a lot of things happening, but at the same time sort of nothing happening, and it's just like so fast. So he convinces this nurse that he's been working with that he's going to do the drug trial on himself. And she's just like, okay. So he does it, and he turns into, they're like on a ship in the middle of international waters or something. He takes the thing, and it turns him into like a crazy vampire face guy, where he kills everyone on the boat except for her and flees. So then, like, he ends up meeting up. So his friend, Milo, goes on to somehow be super rich. I have no idea why he's rich. But he's basically just been, like, bankrolling all of Michael's, like, crazy science stuff their whole lives to try and, like, find a cure for this disease that they have. And so, like, once Milo figures out that he's, like, taking this cure, his best friend, they've been friends since they were children, and they're now 40 years old, or however old the fuck they are. 50. I don't know how old is
Jared Leto's in his fucking 50s. It's wild.
I think Matt Smith is too, isn't he?
Probably, but Matt Smith doesn't necessarily look like it, but Matt Smith at least looks older. Jared Leto still looks like he's in his 30s somehow. Yeah,
because he's probably doing weird, like,
drinking 15-year-old
placenta baths and stuff. Yeah. So he, like, hasn't heard from, like, his friend. He goes to visit him and Milo sees Morbius walking and, like, looking normal. They do this thing throughout in, like, the beginning of the movie where they just, like, make their faces super pale, and that's how they, like, show that they're sick or whatever, and it's, like, very weird looking because it's, like, very obvious. So he sees him, normal skin color, walking around. He's just like, oh, my buddy, we did it, yay. And then Morbius is like, no, like, this is not good. Something went wrong. And you would think that a lifelong friendship, and Morbius never told him really that he had discovered a cure, right? He's just been, like, working on it behind the scenes. If you showed up and your friend was, like, better, I don't think my immediate response would be like, I mean, I've not been sick like that to the point where I couldn't walk and stuff like that, thankfully. But I feel like your first response isn't immediately become a villain, a super villain. You know, if he's like, I took this and something's wrong with it, I need to try and fix it. He doesn't even listen to him. He's just like, fuck you, and he leaves. And then, like, somehow immediately gets his hands on the DNA thing, knows what it is somehow, injects it himself, I guess, and is just, like, a vampire now, too, and is, like, power hungry on the fact that he can, like, walk and can run around and dance and stuff. And it just was, like, not believable to me.
So
because
go ahead.
I was just gonna, like, the way that they portrayed his character, the immediate flip to me was just not believable. The same way that nurse all of a sudden just like being in love with him was very strange to me. They have just like a very normal relationship, and then all of a sudden he's like, close your eyes and come over here, and then they like make out and stuff, and I was like, what? Why? It was very weird.
Yeah, so his character originally, like, his name is Lucian Crown in the movie, and he was going to be playing I forget how this character's name. I don't think I've ever heard it pronounced out loud other than just the comic books. Loxias, so like Luxius? I don't know. Luxius Crown, who is the character Hunger in the comic books. And, like, one of I was trying to figure out if any of the trivia things had any, like, sort of explanation as to why he got chased. It just says, Matt Smith explained in an interview that he was somewhat confused with his character's history, as he wasn't really aware of how Milo tied into Hunger's greater legacy and the origins from the comics, since it wasn't clarified in the script he was given for the film. Mm-hmm. Many reports from when the film was first announced also claim that Smith's character was, well, his name, the names I just said, and only very shortly prior to the release of the movie, it was announced that his name was actually Milo, although his birth name was Lucian Crown, which is somewhat similar. This has led some to believe that his name was changed during one of the film's many reshoot periods. However, it is also equally possible that this was always the plan, and that the reports simply assumed the film would retain his original name from the comic books. So, like, even Matt Smith was just like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know either, Matt Smith.
Apparently, J.K. Simmons was going to be J. Jonah Jameson in it until it got pushed back and they realized that it didn't make sense if Morbius was in another universe. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing I read is that, in the first crime scene, Agent Ramirez states that this was the weirdest crime after That Thing in San Francisco. This is a reference to Venom 2018. Later in the movie, Morbius states, I am Venom, to a thug assaulting him. In the trailer, this line was followed by, I'm just kidding, it's Dr. Michael Morbius at your service, but it was cut from the movie itself. That's somehow worse.
Yeah, I agree. What they should have cut it out completely. I don't even understand. I don't understand.
The movie is awesome.
Yeah,
I guess apparently at some point in like the script, like I would be very interested to read. I wonder if like the original script for this is online anywhere, because like it seems like there's a lot of stuff in this that would have tied a bunch of shit together No Way Home. Like, I guess at some point in the original script, like, or maybe it was shot and cut out, like, Carnage was going to be one of the people, like, let's see, in the original cut, Carnage was one of Morbius's prisoners before the film was reshuffled and placed 8 movies ahead to where it originally was going to be. I don't know what that means, because I don't know, but apparently, like, Carnage was going to be in it as, like, somebody Morbius was trying to, like, cure or whatever. Like,
yeah,
it seems like there was interesting ideas happening, and then COVID happened, and, like, all this shit got shuffled around, and it just kind of became this, like, fucking weird mess that makes no sense post No Way Home to even, like, exist.
So that's that I think is like the real downfall of the movie, because it feels to me, just watching it, it was like what did you say, an hour 40?
Yeah.
it feels to me like this was originally a 2.5-hour movie, and they just like cut a bunch of scenes. I know this is not what they did, but cut a bunch of scenes and then like that had other people in it, and then just like was like, here you go. Because like the way that the editing is, it's like so weird to it's like it's just so hard to put together. Like it's not a cohesive movie.
It's one of those movies where you feel like a solid 30 minutes of story was cut out to make it hit like a specific time, and you're just kind of like, oh, like I feel like a lot of plot was just taken out of this to like make this reach whatever time, and now it doesn't make sense. We talked about this in like a regular episode like of a movie we did recently, and I can't remember what it is now, where we're just like, it feels like everything that moved the plot forward was cut out. Shit just sort of happens to happen now.
Yeah, Vampire Assassin, probably.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, and I feel like part of what made this movie, I really think, like, we can talk about graphics and like CG all day long. Like at the end of the day, it is what it is, and you either reach a point where you want to just like appreciate what it is or what they were going for, use your imagination or whatever, or not, right? And if you don't want to, the movie's not for you as far as the CG goes. I feel like the major issue with this movie is the pacing, like we've said. If the pacing was better or the story was a little bit more like cohesive, like it would have been just a fine, like whatever media, you know, like it wouldn't be so bad.
Yeah, like I said, it's very much like the original X-Men movie kind of era. Yeah. Comic book movie, it was especially like the CG feels very dated, and it's strange.
That's why when we were watching it, because I feel like I don't like CG at all, but one of the few places where I feel like the CG fits and they normally do a good job is like most Marvel movies. You can't really have those movies without CG, right. Some of them.
Like from all the stuff I've seen of Venom, like the Venom stuff looks pretty great, and like I don't know what happened with like. Well, I do. So I think the director, maybe Jared Leto, I don't know, somebody involved with this movie, I was reading something, said like, which is another movie I haven't seen. You may have, so you might be able to tell me that like a lot of like the fight scene stuff and like the sort of way the weird fucking like floaty like flash running bullshit that follows like Morbius and Milo when they're like vampires was like inspired by Detective Pikachu. Like I don't know, like I saw like them talk about how something about like some of the effects were inspired from that movie, and I haven't seen it, so I have no idea what they were talking about.
Interesting. I will say the one thing that I did think was kind of cool about it is exactly what you're talking about. There's like this weird, like the way that they tried to portray them having like sonar, echolocation, and the way that they can move really fast is that they do this weird kind of like gritty sand like effect. And there was a lot of scenes where I actually thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, like I saw a lot of people complaining about the CGI in it, and like minus the faces, I did not bump into it really at all. Like some of the stuff, like when Milo and Morbius are having like their fight at the end,
oh my god,
is kind of goofy. But like when Morbius attacks everybody on the ship, I kind of liked that. Like I thought that looked pretty decent, and like, you know, like it's goofy, and I don't feel like it totally fits with how the character moves from like the comics or well, I want to talk about the Spider-Man animated Morbius in a minute, but like I don't know, like that part I kind of liked. I also liked the way they portrayed where you think it's Morbius and find out it was Milo killing the nurse in that hallway with the lights kind of going in and out. Like, there's certain things in here that, like, I was like, this is done pretty well, but then, like, the faces look like shit.
Oh my god. I feel like this movie, yeah.
And that was all Jared Leto too. He was like, I don't want to do prosthetics in this, which is weird because he does prosthetics in fucking everything else.
I was gonna say, I feel like doing really simple prosthetics on them for the vampire face part of it would have done this movie so much good.
And then just like tweaking it with CGI afterwards.
Yeah, but like, oh my god, it just looks. It's so bad, and like I said, it's almost like if you were to say they had any money for this movie, I assume they spent it all on just having Jared Leto in this. Unfortunately, they used most of their special effects budget on his face. So then, when you get to Matt Smith's face, I feel like it's so dumbed down that it almost looks worse to me. It's like. I appreciate that they have different faces, I guess, but like it literally kind of just looks like the CG version of like getting face tattoos from Spirit and then just like putting them on your face.
It's also like I love Matt Smith. I think Matt Smith is an incredible actor, and like he's the best part of this movie, I think. Like, but. He's got such a distinct, like, head and facial structure that, like, doesn't work with this just solely face CGI. Like, it looks weird on him. And,
it looks very strange.
I don't know, like, it looks, for the most part, fine on Jared Leto. Like, it still just looks like a CGI face, but, like... It kind of works because it's also he's got like that long hair that covers up some of it and like all that, so like it does kind of work on him. Matt Smith's got like that short hair, so it's just all visible, like you can see where the CGI ends. It just was not a good idea. Like I think they should have done prosthetics, and then if you want to do like the wide mouth thing and all that, like you can just like alter that with CGI afterwards. But yeah, I don't know. That shit all looks fucking pretty bad. It's that thing, they do that thing where like it goes in and out. So it's not like they can like, it's like they could summon it up to look angry and then go right back to their regular face. And that's the shit I hate. Like, they do it a little bit weird. Like with the Hulk in Infinity War when he's like, Bruce Banner's trying to call the Hulk out, and it's just like he's like no, and like zooms back in. And I was like, oh boy, this is just a worse version of that.
I mean, they do that in like horror movies too. If like someone's possessed or whatever, and it just never. I feel like usually never works. So I am like baffled why they chose that for this. The other thing that was like weird to me about this was the fight scenes were like. Weird because
anticlimactic.
They did that too, but they did this thing where they would like slow-mo and then like fast pace it, and then they would do this thing where they would just be like it's almost like you're playing one of those games where like you're in the middle of like a cutscene and then it'll stop and you have to do like the real-time button mashing or whatever, because it would be like
well, it's
and I'm like, why?
It's all the Matrix. Yeah, like almost all of the fight, like they literally do bullet time in this fucking movie, which it baffled me. But like all of the fight, like almost all of the fight scenes in this are so like reminiscent of the Matrix that like my mind was blown that anybody in 2022 was still doing this shit besides the Matrix.
Yeah, the whole like fight scene like down in the subway I thought was just not great. They tried to do this stuff where they would like run upside on the walls and then the camera would spin, and I'm just like, your CG is not good enough to be doing this. I feel
like it looks better in like The Flash on CW than it did in this movie.
That is saying something, let me tell you, because I love that show with all of my heart, but the CG is not good.
Yeah, because they have like maybe $800,000 an episode to do, as opposed to a couple $100 million for this movie.
I was gonna say, does it say how much it costs to make this? And did you see?
I'm sure it does. I can look it up. I'm sure IMDb's probably got it.
I'm just the fact that people got this movie back in theaters is like
so funny,
stunning to me. For why?
The budget was only estimated at $75 million, which is pretty small for these movies. And like,
$70 million went to Jared Leto, I bet.
Honestly, I would bet he probably made like maybe $15 million to do this, if maybe not less.
I'm gonna see if it says.
Because like technically, like it worldwide, it more than doubled its budget. I would not be surprised if there isn't a sequel, unless there's like some shit like going on behind the scenes with like all of these movies that we don't know about now. But like, I could see them doing a sequel.
It says that he made $7 million.
Yeah, that's probably why he that's probably why he was like, I don't want to do big,
prosthetics.
Yeah, because he's just like $7 million is more than enough, but you know what I mean. Like that's for like these actors of that level are probably just like, I'm not doing that for unless I'm getting paid more. So like I guess I get why they didn't do that, but I don't know. It's weird because like he's such a fucking weirdo that all the shit that like is in this that like is the opposite of what he normally does for these kind of movies is very strange. Like he's like he even went so far that I was reading a thing about how on set he wanted to make sure that like his pre-Morbius like the cane walk was like working, and like he stayed in that, so he would do it all the time. That would lead to him having like anytime he would have to go take like a restroom break, it would be like a 45-minute like downtime because it would take him that long to get to the restroom and back, to where they had to start like wheelchairing him all over the place because it was faster. Sure. So he was doing his like weirdo fucking method acting shit for that, but like wouldn't put some fucking vampire teeth in.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, you don't really see his face that much. I feel like it would be like a couple days of shooting with it on.
I
whatever.
Really wish they would have went with like the Morbius animated series version where he like sucks blood with like little suckers in his hands, because I find that infinitely more terrifying than just like regular vampire shit.
Yeah.
And it just looks cool. So like that I wanted that instead of just this general regular vampire nonsense.
I'm gonna look it up. Yeah, I don't know.
It's a good movie. Everybody should go watch it on Netflix.
Oh, I've seen this. Ew, I hate that. Ugh.
It's like so much creepier than like regular vampire, and it was supposed to be so like kids weren't scared. Like I guess they had like whatever, you know, since it was a kids cartoon, like whatever stuff they had to like specifically not show, which was like a vampire feasting on people, and they're like, oh, we'll just give him like these things where he does it with his hands, and I was like, that's worse, and this is scarier.
Well, especially because he's got like 5 of them, and they have little ridges in them, like they're sucker. Like, I don't know. I don't prefer that.
I love it. It's like my
There's
favorite
a picture
version.
of a dude laying on the ground, and he's got like sucker marks all over his face.
Yeah, it would leave like marks from when he used it. It's so good.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I mean, it is what it is. I don't know what I really expected. I guess I expected it to be unwatchable, and even though it has a lot of like errors in it or whatever, it like wasn't unwatchable. Yeah, I would not watch it again, but
I don't know. I don't know what movies people are watching normally that people were like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen, because like this was totally middle of the road.
Yeah. Obviously not the amount of shitty. Yeah. It was whatever. And I think like obviously I don't know why you would go into it thinking this is gonna be like an Avengers movie. You know what I mean? Like, if you go in thinking that, then yeah, this is probably the worst thing you've ever seen. But like, I'm gonna stand by. I feel like it's not any worse than any of the stuff that DC has been putting out. Like, yeah, previously.
This is better than the first Suicide Squad movie. Like, this was better than fucking. I don't know if I would say it's better than the Ben Affleck Daredevil. I kind of like that. I back that movie at like for like the time period. I kind of like it, and the director's cut is a lot more fun. But like, I don't know. Like, this isn't worse than like, yeah, like you said, like almost any of the fucking Zack Snyder DC stuff. Like this, I would much rather watch this because it's way shorter and not as. It's at least got some fun stuff in it as opposed to just being a fucking gloom fest the whole time.
Yeah.
Fuck, there was something else I wanted to bring up that I just like.
To be fair, there's like almost no emotion in it at all. So if you're trying to just watch something really regular, like.
Well, like Matt Smith is like doing so much, especially once he like becomes a vampire, that it's like fun. You get that like insane dance sequence he's doing when he's like getting dressed that I was like, this rocks. I love Matt Smith. Fuck, there was one other thing I specifically was gonna bring up and I can't remember what it was. It had something to do, like, we were just talking about something, I just lost it. Oh well, maybe it'll come back to me. So I guess originally in the first Blade movie, somebody shot scenes as Morbius. And it's, I think it's in the deleted scenes. You can see, I didn't know who the actor was. I haven't pulled up on my phone or anything. But he shot scenes to show up as Morbius. Then I guess Morbius was supposed to be a part of Blade 2 with, which would have been incredible with like Del Toro. Because Del Toro specifically was like, I want to do Morbius. And the studio was like, no, we're not going to let you do that. And I'm like, what the fuck? Yeah. Why would you not let him? So, like, he was originally supposed to, like, be a part of those original Blade movies. And I guess there was, like, a deal in, like, the early 2000s where Sony and, like, some other company, like, made some deal that they were going to produce, like, villain movies, like what's happening now, that like just didn't come to fruition, and now for some reason they're doing it. That like, I would be interested to know like what some of those plans were in like 2000 as opposed to now.
Yeah,
I want to see like Morbius coming out around the time of like Twilight, where they try to make him all like sparkly and weird.
I would love it.
This should have been a straight up horror movie, is what it should have been.
Yeah, I think so.
Instead of trying to make him like an anti-hero or whatever, it should have been like he turns and struggles for like the first part of the movie, and then just accepts it and becomes a bad guy, and it's just like eating people, and Spider-Man's got to stop him.
Is that what happens, though? Because, like, the way that they leave it off in the movie, it's, like, not, to me, like I said, not very clear to me that he's a villain at all. Or like, struggling with not being a villain. Because that makes sense to me, but that's not what they did.
I looked it up, and, like, the post-credit scene, I was like, I know he says something about Spider-Man. What it is he says, Toomes is like, I don't know why I'm here, but I think somehow it's Spider-Man's fault.
Oh, yeah.
And then, like, I don't know if they decide they're going to start forming the Sinister Six, but like he says maybe we could do some good, and I don't know if that's a serious line or if that's like a tongue-in-cheek, like I don't understand it at all. It doesn't make any sense to me. But like in the comic books, like he's mostly a good guy that just like, I don't know, quote unquote relapses sometimes, like because he has to feed at some point. And like, and it's like there's a comic, like a run of comic books that are like something some like weird long name and like has like Midnight Suns in it, where he's
Rise
like
of the Midnight Suns.
Yeah, it's something. It's like he's living in like the sewers with these like group of people, and it's like at one point like they basically like something happens where like they decide they're like, well, you know, I think that they do this thing where like in the comics he doesn't realize that like if he doesn't fully kill people, like they'll come back and have some of his powers or whatever, so then he's got to like work with Blade to like get rid of all these vampires, and stands trial and like all this shit for killing people, but they're like, well, technically he reversed a bunch of them, so like whatever, and they let him go. He goes and like lives in the sewer, and these people are like bringing him people and telling him, they're like, oh, this guy was like a murderer, blah blah blah, and his idea, he's like, he thinks he's only feasting on bad people, so it's like fine. And then like Spider-Man comes down and it's just like, what the fuck, you're a serial killer, and like reveals to him that like all they're just regular people, and the people that were like this group that were bringing them to him were just telling him they were bad guys. And so he like freaks out and like goes like just like out just to like from town to town, and it's just doing whatever in his storyline, and does shit with like Ghost Rider and like Blade and like all these other characters, and then like I don't know, would like team up and like help the Avengers sometimes, and like is pretty much sort of like a good guy that just unfortunately has to like eat people sometimes. And like I think it eventually becomes that he does actively only feast on like murderers and stuff like that, so he's like kind of a good guy. And like I don't know if that's what the plan is supposed to be if they move forward, but it's just very, very not like well done to where you have any fucking idea what is happening in those like literally post-credit scenes.
Yeah. It's like, it's kind of like the entire the thing that the movie doesn't develop any characters at all. It's literally an hour and 40 minutes, and you can sum it up by being like, guy who's sick becomes scientist and merges his DNA with bats, so now he's a vampire. Like that's like the takeaway from the movie. There's no trajectory for like where he stands on it, because to me, obviously, if you're worried about killing people, that's the route you take, right? You go to prison and you whatever, because then that gets into a whole bunch of different like questions about morals and like ethics and all that stuff. And so if he is like, even if he's doing that, I could see a character like Spider-Man being like, hey, just because you're killing people who are killers or whatever, like that's not right, you shouldn't take any lives, and then they fight, right? That makes sense to me, but we don't, there just was nothing. It was like a paper plate movie as far as any kind of direction goes. And so that's why like the Vulture thing was like even more baffling to me, because all of a sudden they're trying to like tie it in with stuff that just, I'm like, what? If they would have gone with like the original plan of like anything involving anybody in the actual movie, I think is the other thing that would have made this like so much better. Because who cares? Like, why do you like? Obviously, there's stuff that happened in No Way Home that messed up whatever they were trying to do. But there's other stuff you could do. Like this movie, the movie could have taken place like at any point, right? So like, I don't know.
It's just like another thing that like I don't think Sony understands anything about like Spider-Man characters.
No,
because
I don't
like
think so.
Spider-Man has, I would say, arguably maybe the second best like rogues gallery outside of maybe like Batman.
Yeah, I agree.
And like so many of them are like I don't want to say misunderstood, but like they have so much like pathos to their characters. They're all like have these like bleak stories. They're like, they didn't like try to be bad guys, but like shit just happened to them where that's just kind of what happened. Like you know, Venom is like a dude who gets taken over by this alien, Like, Dr. Octopus is like, it's so many of them too were like people who were like in the process of trying to do something good, and like something happens and like they turn into these villains or whatever, and like
like actually half of them, like Dr. Connors, Goblin, all of them.
Yeah, like all like almost all of them. Even if you look at some of the ones that are like kind of generally looked at to be like heroes, like Punisher or Morbius or like whatever, they all have these like tragic backstories that, I don't know, like, anytime I feel like any of these characters are brought to screen in these Sony movies, they're just like, no, they're bad guys. And, like, they're trying to do this thing now where they're turning all of the bad guys into heroes for some reason. And, like, I don't know how that works in the long run because, like, okay, well, now you're making people like Venom as much as they like Spider-Man. How is that going to work when they eventually fight? Like, that's why I think, especially this movie, should have been, say you add an extra 20 minutes, where it's 2 hours long now. Like, kind of, like, you know, that's roughly the length of, like, most of these, like, the Marvel movies. And, like, you set up Morbius, he gets turned, he's trying to just do artificial blood, and it's not working, and eventually he has to just start feasting on, like, people. Like, take out the whole fucking Matt Smith storyline. It's just Morbius. Eventually has to start feeding on people, and then Spider-Man shows up to stop him. And then they come to their understanding of like, okay, like, I realize you're not like a complete bad guy, but I also have to stop you from killing people. And then you kind of go forward into whatever movies after that. It would have worked so much better, at least for me, than like whatever this vampire versus vampire shit where Matt Smith is just like, oh, like, I'm your best friend, blah, blah, blah. Never mind, I'm gonna kill you. I'm a vampire now. Like,
join me in being evil or I'll fucking kill you. It makes no sense. Because in some ways, I feel like the inclusion of Matt Smith's character as, like, the bad guy, like, if you're trying to say, like, oh, this is a superhero movie or whatever movie, you have to have a bad guy. Like, or, you know, like a bad guy outside of, like, obviously Morbius is fighting himself as being the bad guy, right? Yeah. Because the inclusion of Matt,
good, like, more like, if granted you would have to get a better actor than Jared Leto, but like, the amount of like drama you could have made this movie if it was just this dude struggling by himself with like this thing he brought onto himself to try to cure. Like, oh my god, it would have been so good.
Like, I feel like that is the natural, like, to me, that is the only, like, that's what I assume this movie should be. Because you already have, like, the scene where, you know, like, he originally changes, he kills all those people, and he doesn't really realize what happened until he sees the video. Or, like, he wakes up and he
sees, like, he says something about he blacks out whenever.
Blacks out. Then you have that scene with the nurse, which ends up being Matt Smith, but imagine Matt Smith's not there, and it's like, he doesn't know that he's doing it until after the fact, and then you have these cops, like, the cops are the bad guys. There you go. You have these cops that are like...
Their storyline is so pointless in this fucking movie.
Literally. Like, except for to bring up the artificial blood, because I didn't know about it. But, like, the only reason that I feel like you need to include somebody else, aka Matt Smith's character, is if you're making this a standalone movie... Because then it's like, this is a one and done. You know, he ended up having to fight his best friend. He has to kill his best friend. His girlfriend dies, kind of. So, like, that's why maybe now he's evil, because he had to, like, go through all of this shit or whatever, and that's it. But they negate all of that by tying in Vulture, by being like, oh, haha, this isn't a standalone movie. So then it's like, what was the whole point of that? It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's again, like, it's just... a studio whose mindset is, well, our biggest hits were like those Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies. Let's just keep making them like that, which is like not the culture and world we live in anymore. No. I would have flat out, like, if they have this deal with Kevin Feige, who, like, I can't even say debatable. Like, I'm pretty sure at this point is the architect and big storyteller of the MCU. Yeah. And whether you like those movies or not, it's impressive, like, you can't say it's not impressive, like, what he's done. Because it's got to be one of, like, it has to be the most, like, detailed and, like, whatever, like, oriented sort of story building in, like, cinematic history at this point. Because, like, you're tying in however many fucking different character universe, like, they're all the same universe, but, like, you know, like, especially at the beginning, they were all solo movies that, like, weren't tied together other than post-credit scenes leading to something bigger. I don't know. Like, let Kevin Feige have a bigger hand, unless he just doesn't want to be involved, but, like, let him sort of guide this stuff, because, like, especially with those Spider-Man movies, like, the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies are so fucking good. And, like, like, nail that character, and have done, like, a great job with the villains, too. Like, Mysterio's not comic book accurate, per se, but it's fucking good. And they got a good actor to play that character, and, like, Vulture is fucking so good with Michael Keaton in Homecoming. And bringing back, like, all of those characters, like, I don't know, like, what they did with the Spider-Man movies works, and, like I said, I haven't seen Venom. I know people seem to like it, but from what I've heard, like, I'll probably just be middle of the road on it. But, like, this villain universe thing they're doing is just not working. And I don't know why they're... No. Other than the fact that they're already in production on some things, like, I don't know why they're continuing trying to build this, like, Avengers version of Sinister Six with characters that can't support, like, a hour and a half, 2 hour solo movie. Like, you gotta involve Spider-Man at some point with all of these characters.
I also feel like, I mean, I guess that maybe when some of these movies were being originally, like, made, Spider-Verse wasn't super big to everybody. So I feel like unless they were just kind of, like, waiting to, like, they were, like, ramping up, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, by the way, the Spider-Verse exists for, like, this last movie or whatever. I feel like if you're going to do standalone movies for these other, like, that would be, like, the perfect, like, vehicle to start introducing, like, other Spider-Verse heroes, like, other spiders. They're not all Spider-Men, but you know what I mean. If you're gonna do it, I don't know. It just seems like
they should have stopped after, because, like, they had to have known, like, for at minimum a year before filming started, what No Way Home was gonna be, right? Like, they knew they were going into multiverse. They knew that, like, that kind of shit was gonna be happening. Like,
I mean, I feel like whenever Doctor Strange showed up, they should have known, like, in general.
Well, like, granted, you've already got Morbius in some sort of production at that point, because, like, it was supposed to come out pre No Way Home. Like, once you know that's the plan, you like, just continue doing whatever you're doing with the main storyline, and then reconfigure it with a post-credit scene, and then just, like, go forward, like, with multiverse stuff. Or if you want to build the Sinister Six, you could literally make your post-credit scene as, like, you know, Venom and Morbius are already in this universe, and then all of a sudden you realize, like, it's the same universe as Rhino and Electro and whoever, and now all of a sudden you have your Sinister Six. Just go straight into a Sinister Six movie with these two, like, Venom and Morbius, and then have them tied in with, like, a couple of the villains from, like, whatever previous Spider-Man movie, and then, you know, like, bring back fucking Andrew Garfield to fight him, and have Tom Holland pop in to, like, help out if you need, or whatever. Like, there's ways you could do this that don't make it baffling and weird and, like, bad.
Yeah.
Like, badly put together as, like, they seem to be doing with these villain movies. Because, I don't know, this makes me really nervous for whatever Kraven is going to be. And then, I don't know what the fuck Madam Web is going to be. I saw rumors that the idea is that the movie follows Spider-Man's parents instead of, like, whatever. Like, so Adam Scott is going to be playing, like, Spider-Man's dad, and, like, whoever else is in it will be the mom, and then I think Dakota Johnson is playing Madam Web. But, like, they're theorizing that, like, it's going to be, like, a pre-Peter Parker storyline, and I'm like, why are you doing this? No one wants this.
No.
No one comes to a Spider-Man universe movie to not see fucking Spider-Man. Like,
right? That's, what a weird choice. I have no idea.
I don't get it. I don't get how all of these studios are like, we're going to do our own MCU and just fuck it up so badly. Like, DC is so fucking terrible at it right now. And, like, I guess technically Sony's building something and they're only, like, 3 movies in, but, like, I don't know. Based on Morbius, it's not working.
I just feel like it's already... I mean, I guess, like, it's going to be a wait-and-see kind of situation, but I feel like it's already so messed up that, like, I can't imagine the payoff is going to be worth it to, like, sit through who knows how many movies. I personally, like I said, did not like Venom. I don't even think I made it through the whole thing. I want to say maybe I'll watch it and watch the second one, but I just really don't know if I will.
I think if they pop up for free at some point, we should do them as like a bonus episode. But that's, let's see. I'm not renting them, so it's gonna have to be one of those things where, like, they're gonna have to just hit like Hulu or Netflix or some shit.
Yeah, I actually think I watched the first Venom. Tried to watch it on an airplane.
It, like, from what I've seen of it, I feel like I would enjoy it. I don't think it would be anywhere near like a top 10 comic book movie for me, but, like, I like Tom Hardy, and that's the thing about, like, the thing that fails the most with Morbius that I think probably works better with Venom is Tom Hardy is a real actor that, like, goes all in on this shit. And it feels like Jared Leto just was like, I don't know, I'm only getting paid $7 million, I'll just show up and do the same monotone fucking acting for everything. Like, he never emotes in this movie at all. And, like,
that's why I said that it's like a paper plate movie. Like, nobody has any emotions except for Matt Smith.
Matt Smith, who's, like, unfortunately trying to do... Matt Smith has turned down numerous roles in comic book movies that would have probably been actually good. Like, it doesn't... I can't find anywhere where it states, like, what he was offered. But he's talked about he turned down a bunch of them until...
That's such a bummer.
Karen Gillian, who plays Nebula, who was like one of his companions when he was the Doctor on Doctor Who, was like, no, you should do one of these, they're fun, blah blah blah, like, whatever, kind of convinced him to do one, and this is the role he picked. And I think it was solely based on, like, I think he had worked with the director before.
Okay. That's unfortunate.
I think it was like the combo of, like, talking with Karen and then I think being friends with or having worked with the director before, that, like, this is what he picked.
I mean, the movie, to me, not a success. I don't have anything bad to say about any of the choices that he made. So hopefully, I feel like, I mean, in some ways, I feel like if you're a part of a superhero movie, it does dampen your chances of being in something else, but actually not. There's so many people who have been multiple characters, whether it was, like, one DC, one Marvel, but, like, whatever. I think he could make a comeback as something completely different.
Just make him somebody in the actual MCU. They could absolutely pretend Morbius doesn't exist.
Like, absolutely. I think they should, to be honest with you.
He would be, like...
It's a miss for me.
He'd be a really good, like, Guardians of the Galaxy kind of level, like, creature villain or something. One of those, like, weird space creatures that, like... I don't know, like, sort of like... Drax is a bad example, but I was trying to think of something like Drax where he has this sort of, like, bleak backstory, but is, like, a fun character. Like, Matt Smith could do something totally fun like that and
make it work. I think his, like, I have never watched Doctor Who. I obviously knew him because he was a Doctor Who person. And I don't really know that
he was great on Doctor Who.
I don't know that I've really seen him in anything. I mean, I'm sure I have, but I feel like his range of emotions as an actor is really good, and I think the character, in theory, if you're going from a character who is like kind of like down on his luck, sickly, but has hope, and he's kind of like a best friend, like a kind of guy, whatever, and then he slowly makes the switch to being just completely unhinged, I think would work really well for him as another character, or a character where like he appears to be friendly, but actually he's like deceiving them the whole time. I think he'd be perfect for that kind of thing. It just was kind of like not written well for him in this, where it was like one scene he's like, "Hey buddy, old pal," and the next scene he's like, "I'm fucking crazy." Like, it just didn't make any sense for the character, but his acting of it was great.
He should not have been the bad guy of this movie. He should have been the bad guy of the sequel to this movie. It should have have, I don't know, even if you have to have a bad guy, just have fucking whoever. I don't know, like, I don't know who you could have put in. I still think it would have been a better idea to just have Morbius be the bad guy to himself in the movie.
Yeah.
But have 100%. The reveal at the end be that, like, Matt Smith's character, against Morbius's advice, takes the thing, and then that sets up the next movie as like, now it's going to be Morbius versus his best friend for the sequel. And like, it's like they're still doing this shit. Like no one is learning anything from like what has worked with the MCU, which is don't kill every fucking bad guy at the end of your movie.
I know.
Like, yeah. Especially when you have an actor of that fucking caliber as Matt Smith. Like, don't kill them off. It's so stupid. I don't get it.
All right, thanks. The only thing that worked about this movie.
Yeah, you notice we haven't talked about any other people in this movie besides Jared Leto and Matt Smith, because they're like, every other character in this movie is a non-character. Even the fucking love interest is so bland and useless.
She's also like barely in it, and then at the very end,
she's a comic book character. Like, her storyline also mimics her comic book character, and they made it so fucking boring.
I couldn't even tell that she was a real character.
Like, Martine is like an actual character that gets turned into a vampire as well, and all this shit. And it's like,
yeah, that's what happened. So we'll see. Is she gonna come back as a villain for some reason, or like, I don't know. I don't know.
It's everything about this movie is so goddamn baffling to me, and almost like I look forward to in like 10 years when for some reason this movie has this weird renaissance of like younger people that all of a sudden love it, and they make this fucking like 2-hour documentary about Morbius that I'm gonna be so interested in watching.
I mean, it probably will happen.
Honestly, I would watch a documentary solely about like the internet culture surrounding this movie, about like them somehow tricking Sony into fucking putting it back in theaters and shit, and it made like $280 per screen.
I just can't imagine being like a Sony board of directors guy, and you like go into work, it's a Monday morning, and you're like sitting around the table, and then someone's like, oh, people are tweeting that they want Morbius back in the theater because they didn't get to see it or whatever. And then them like genuinely being like, oh my God, can we do that? Can we do that? And then them thinking it's like not 100% trolling. Like, I don't know.
It's, say what you will about the quality of this movie, the fact that they haven't gone straight into production on a sequel based on all that, knowing that, like, I guarantee you, if a sequel came out in a year, like, it would make its money back on people ironically going to the theater to see it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. 'Cause, like, I feel like that's what most of the money that they made probably was after.
Well, most of it I think
Morb'd
came from
happened.
overseas. I think it only made like $30 million here or some shit.
Yeah,
and it's the same way. Like, Venom was the same way, where like Venom did okay in the U.S. but made a fucking killing in like China. But like,
interesting.
Oh shit, where was I going?
Sequel.
Yeah, I can't remember what my thought was gonna be about the sequel. Like, oh yeah, like even like some of the actors, like even like Jared Leto got in on like the it's Morb'd time shit, where like he made like a fucking like TikTok or fucking some video on Instagram something. Where he was like, he just made a video. He was like, yeah, he's like, I got this new script, blah, blah, blah. Like, he's like, I wrote a script for a Morbius sequel. Here it is. And, like, showed it to the camera, and it was like Morbius 2, it's Morbin time, or some shit. Like,
oh, I do.
To the point where, like, even he was kind of making fun of it. And, like, I feel like if they would have immediately capitalized on that somehow, like, it would have, like, they could have made a killing on the sequel. But,
well, my thought is that they don't know what it would be. They like did this sort of after credit scene where they were just like, here's this new character, everyone will be so excited to see them, and then they were like, but like what the fuck even would that sequel be if it's not a part of the rest, if it's not Spider-Man or Sinister Six Spider-Man, you know what I mean? Like what even would it be?
Yeah, I assume
just like Vulture and Jared Leto palling around, like what?
I assume there was no actual
plan
for a sequel. It was just going to be like whatever the next villain movies are that just leads to Sinister Six where he would come back. But like, I mean, saying all of that, I would absolutely watch like him pop up in like a Spider-Man movie. Like I don't like Jared Leto, but like I feel like, say what you want about him as a person, he can be a good actor. It's just like he does weird shit in specific roles that I'm like, this doesn't work. But there's things like, especially like back in the day, like he was a good actor, and like him popping in to just do like help, you know, Spider-Man solve some fucking thing as like a scientist or whatever would totally work. It's just there's no need for it to be a solo fucking movie.
I feel like that's the way they should have gone. They should have had him show up as either, like, I assume at this point, I'm just going to assume that because they gave him his own, like, story or whatever, he is going to be a part of the Sinister Six. If they just had him show up as that...
I don't think that Sinister Six movie's ever going to happen, to be honest.
Well...
We've been talking about it for so long, and it'll be like...
I meant as, like, part of... just like a Spider-Man movie, not specifically. I probably not. But like, if he would have just like popped up, kind of like when Tom Holland was like cast as Spider-Man, and he just kind of like popped up in Avengers or whatever, and then he got his own movies. Like, I feel like maybe that was probably more of the way to go. Whether he's going to show up as a villain or whether, like you said, he's going to show up as just kind of like a confidant for Peter or whatever. Because, like, he doesn't really have that. You know, he doesn't have Dr. Connors. He doesn't have he doesn't specifically have Willem Dafoe. He doesn't have that. So, like, that would have been a way to, like, introduce a new character if you're trying to, like, add him to the cinematic universe. But I just feel like this was not the way.
Yeah,
this is not the way.
I'm really interested to see because, like, we already kind of got a Sinister Six in No Way Home, right?
Yeah,
there was at least, five villains in that? It was Sandman, Connors, Ock, Green Goblin, Electro.
Yeah.
So, like, you were basically already there. Like, we've already done it. Make them your add one more person. Add fucking Vulture to that cast. You have your Sinister Six.
Yeah.
And then, like, you could just do Venom doesn't have to be part of Sinister Six. He could just be his own fucking thing at some point. Like, you've already got it. Just use them. We don't need this whole other set of villains that aren't in the MCU as well. Like, it's just... I
agree.
Just give all these rights back to fucking Disney and Marvel. Like, it makes all of this shit so much less complicated.
I know.
I think that's all that's left, too, right? Isn't it just the Spider-Man stuff that's no longer... Like, I think everything else is already back in, like, the Marvel hands at this point.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, because, like...
I think it might just be that, because now that like Fox is there, Fox had most of it, like Fantastic Four and X-Men and all that. Yeah. Oh, the other thing, like I think Universal still owns the rights to like a solo Hulk movie.
Let's keep it. That's
yeah,
fine.
I don't. Hulk can't again is another character that can't sustain a solo movie. Yeah, I think it's just the Spider-Man ones, and it's just like, just let them have it back. You're barely making money on some of these movies. Like, just cut your losses and go back to just keep making Fast and Furious or fucking whatever Sony makes.
I know, and it's like, to your point, like you were talking about earlier, how the MCU is kind of like it really is the most like intricate property that there probably ever will be, because you've got like fucking 500 movies now. You have all the TV shows that are like under the umbrella and like continuing and then being like put back into whatever, and it's like if you can't replicate that outside of it, even if you're working with something that's technically the same universe, you know what I mean? Like, you just can't do it. Yeah. Like, just don't even try. Like, why? It's like cobbled together. I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, they're doing the same shit. Like I said, like DC is also fucking up. Where at least DC's idea of like, I liked DC's idea of, okay, we're gonna have a universe, but really like, instead of like an MCU universe, we're gonna be like, you know, in our universe, Ben Affleck could be Batman in this movie, and Robert Pattinson could be Batman in this movie, and like whoever else could be Batman. They're like, it's not necessarily a all tied together universe. It could just be standalone movies. It could tie into the Zack Snyder movies. It could tie into the fucking Nolan movies if they wanted. That's a good idea. They're just not doing it properly because they made that decision in the middle of the Zack Snyder universe, and now they got whatever the fuck reshuffling's going on where they're canceling everything and whatnot. I'm so mad about that Batgirl movie still.
I know.
I can't believe someone hasn't just leaked it to the internet yet, but like, I don't know. I like that idea, and I think Sony could also do that. Like, Sony could make another Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. I think they've talked about doing another Andrew Garfield movie. Like, do that.
I'd be so happy.
None of this shit has to tie together. You can have multiple people, like the audience isn't that stupid that they're going to just be like, oh, well, I don't know, great, I see some fucking weird questions pop up on Google when you search things, but like, I don't know, like, I don't see why they couldn't just do different Spider-Man storylines that don't have to tie into the MCU, and then just let MCU have the Tom Holland Spider-Man and do whatever, like, I mean,
if anything, Spider-Man is literally set up to do that.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many to choose from. You could literally just you could do that. It's like so baffling to me that it took, I mean, like, we still don't have a Spider-Man movie except for Into the Spider-Verse, which I'm not counting because it's animated, even though it's amazing.
Not that continuity.
You don't have a non-Peter Parker. Why? There's so many. You don't need, listen, I love Peter Parker, but you don't need him anymore. You don't need to cast another white dude as Spider-Man.
It's wild. They haven't done a Miles Morales movie.
When they originally, I'm glad that Miles and like some of the other characters are finally starting to get some like recognition with like the video games and Into the Spider-Verse. But when they announced that and I wouldn't change anything because I love the Tom Holland Spider-Man movie so much, obviously. But when they first announced that they were rebooting it with like Spider-Man Homecoming, I thought for sure that they were going to be doing Miles. And I was like, oh my God, this is great. We're going to get like a new thing. And then they were just like, here's Peter Parker, this Tom Holland guy. And I was like, what the fuck? And it ended up being amazing, and it's fine and it's great. But I'm like, how is it 2022 and we've barely started to scratch the surface on like all of these other characters?
That's the thing, is like, that's what, if Sony's executives were fucking smart, they would be like, okay, MCU's got Tom Holland, we got Miles Morales. We could literally do 15-year-old Spider-Man. And then you could have that, like, if that actor's down for it, years of those movies. Because he's starting young.
Yeah.
And then they could fucking cross over in a Spider-Verse movie. Like, it's so right there. And they're just like, no, what if we do all of these characters no one's ever heard of that nobody wanted a solo movie from? Nobody ever asked for a Madam Web movie.
No. I would hazard to say I feel like most people don't even know who that is, to be honest.
I barely know
like,
who
why
that
would
is.
you?
And I read the fucking comic books.
Yeah, it's a really, really confusing choice. There's also, like, so many other characters from Peter Parker's Spider-Man story that they just, like, never use. I think the fact that they had Gwen Stacy instead of Mary Jane was insane to me, because Gwen obviously is my favorite, but, like, outside of, like, Flash and Mary Jane, there's, like, no other peripheral Spider-Man characters that are, like, ever in anything. And it's like...
Well, that's why I think it was smart they went with Ned for Tom Holland instead of, like...
Yeah.
Because, like, Ned is a comic book character and, like, brings a much different feel. I don't know. I mean, we talked about it in that fucking long No Way Home episode where we were kind of, like, trying to theorize, like, what was going to happen next. But, like, it's fun seeing him not be this, like, solo character for a little bit. Having, like, a friend, a baby to lean on or whatever, like, even with Zendaya's MJ character, like...
Yeah. I love the direction they went with her, because previously it was kind of just, like, Peter was, like, you know, in fact, like, in love with her, but they weren't friends. They weren't interacting on, like, a normal basis for the most part. Like, obviously in the first Spider-Man movie, like, they start talking or whatever, but they're friends for so long before they're like, oh, hey, you know, like normal people.
Yeah.
Well, unless you're on 90 Day Fiancé, of course. But you know what I mean? Like, they had her as just there as, like, his friend, and, like, interacting with all of them together, I think was just, like, such a good idea, rather than, like, I could not stand another emo Peter Parker, like, saying where, like, he's all alone. He has nobody. He kind of likes this girl, but she doesn't really, like, notice him, and then she does. You know what I mean? Like, and the fact that he can, like, share his secret with them, I mean, obviously that got taken away from him, which was, like, heartbreaking, but, like, he didn't keep it a secret from them for, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
I saw a theory that I was going to text you about one night, but I saw it at, like, 2 in the morning, and then I think I forgot about it, like, by the next day, that somebody was talking about, like, so Doctor Strange wipes everyone's memory of Spider-Man, right? But Wanda was in that area where she was controlling everything, where his magic wouldn't affect her.
Right.
So technically Wanda should know Peter Parker Spider-Man still.
Fair. Yeah. Why not?
Also I can't remember how, like, everything with, like, the Multiverse of Madness movie, I can't remember if Wanda's still alive at the end of it or not, so, like, we'll see. But technically somebody in that universe still... Also, like, how does Adrian Toomes still remember? Shouldn't that have wiped his fucking memory? I don't know. Like...
Yeah, that's why... Well, okay, I guess, like, technically he can remember what happened with Spider-Man, because the whole thing was that nobody would know that Peter Parker was Spider-Man. So technically, like, all of the stuff that happened still happened, but, I mean, it still doesn't make any sense. Unless they're going to try and be like, oh, well, somebody created a device that allowed him to travel to a different universe or some shit. Like, I just, like, don't understand why he's there. There's, like, no logical reason that we already know story-wise that he should be there. I don't know.
I have a feeling that was supposed to happen earlier in the movie, and then Vulture was probably going to be... It seemed like Vulture was going to have, like, more of a part in the movie, and then, I don't fucking, COVID happened, and this... Again, like, I want to...
Michael Keaton was like, that's all for me,
I'm going to look
and they're
up
like, damn.
if I could find, like, the original script online, because I really am interested to see what Morbius was going to be prior to COVID and all that, getting pushed back by like 3 years or some shit.
So I don't super know that much about Scarlet Witch, except for I feel like, is she not the most powerful like person in the MCU?
She's not
one of them.
She's probably the most powerful in the current, like, the movies.
Yeah.
But like comic book wise, she's in like the top 10, I think, but like not number one. I think technically like Dark Phoenix is stronger than her. I can't remember.
Okay. Yeah, it's still really weird to me that they've like kept X-Men like separate.
They're a lot of people expected them to announce like Fantastic Four and X-Men casting at D23 this year, and like I think Kevin Feige was like, X-Men are like a way off. He's like, we're working on some things, but X-Men aren't a priority at the moment because they're kind of like, he said that like the Ant-Man movie that comes out, it can't be. I don't know. For some reason I thought Ant-Man was coming out soon, but maybe it's like beginning of 2023 is what is supposed to like fully tie in all the shit that's been happening post Endgame and kind of like start kicking into like the Kang stuff. And so he was like, that's what we're building right now. X-Men are coming, but it's not like anything soon, which could also just be him like, you know, hiding that X-Men might pop up in something and we just don't know yet, instead of just announcing it.
Yeah.
So, you know, but like, take it with a grain of salt. But like, he was basically just like, X-Men. It's also, X-Men is a thing that like you don't want to fuck up. So like, take your time with it. I'm fine.
Yeah.
I don't need an X-Men movie next year. Like, just do it whenever you have to, as long as you get it right.
Yeah. So my question was like, theoretically, if you're, I only watched that Doctor Strange movie like in the theater. I'm like pretty sure that Scarlet Witch is alive still. I'm pretty sure he like leaves her on that like pedestal thingy, because like she snapped too, right? Like he whatever, she's fine.
Well, so, that was the other universe Scarlet Witch. At the end, I believe, like, she gets the regular universe Wanda from, like, WandaVision and the other movies, gets kicked into the other universe and, like, scares the kids in that universe and, like, comes back. But for some reason, I feel like she's, like, got, like, obliterated or some shit, and I can't remember.
Maybe America put her somewhere else.
I'll look it up while we're talking.
Yeah, because I can't remember. But what I was gonna say is, like, theoretically, if she remembered who Peter Parker was Spider-Man, could she do something that would make people remember? Like, could she break the spell?
Yeah.
Like, is she strong enough to do that?
That's right. So, realizing the error of her ways, Wanda relents and uses her powers to bring down Mount Wundagore, simultaneously destroying all copies of the Darkhold throughout the multiverse and apparently sacrificing herself in the process. Because the whole place collapses around her, which just means she's not dead. She's gonna pop up.
Oh no, I don't think.
I didn't think she was. I'm pretty sure she's got like one of those contracts where she's like gonna show up in like other things. But like I kept thinking, I was like, oh, it's weird. Like they're making it seem like she's dead. But yeah, I just remember reading something that was like, technically Wanda having the Darkhold and doing whatever she was doing out on that like quote unquote farm that Doctor Strange comes to see her at, like other magic wouldn't affect her. So like she technically should still know Peter Parker Spider-Man.
I like that idea.
I don't know how that would tie into anything, because like I
don't know.
I don't have any idea where Spider-Man's going in another movie, but I don't know where the fucking MCU's going at this point. So I'm interested to see, now that I know Ant-Man is what's going to be because I think Ant-Man, they said, is like the end of this phase. When does this come out? Oh, it comes out in February, so like we're getting close.
Yeah.
I think Ant-Man is the end of Phase 4 and is supposed to be what's going to, like, officially tie all this shit together. Because they introduced Kang in fucking Loki, and then there's been no mention of him since. It's been very weird.
I really need to also start watching some of the shows.
Yeah, you do.
I want a Daredevil Spider-Man movie.
I saw something today or yesterday that was talking about how the Daredevil show is most likely bringing back all of those characters except Punisher, because I think, I mean, granted, it's just a rumor, so who knows, but, like, I think John Bernthal just had, like, scheduling issues. So I think all of those Netflix characters are coming back into this universe now.
That's, like, whenever, like, all of this, like, first started happening with, Disney Plus happening, and then people being like, oh, all of those Marvel shows are going to, like, move over, whatever. My, like, hope was that they were going to keep the characters, but in my mind, I was like, that's probably not going to happen, and I'm just going to have to get used to, like, a new Daredevil, maybe. And so this is, like, to me, already best case scenario, so I feel like anything they're going to do, I'm going to love.
Yeah, my understanding is that it's going to be, like, a sort of soft reboot where technically those Marvel show, or the Netflix shows are canon, but, like, they're gonna kind of just sort of, like, so, like, all of that shit happened, but they're going to kind of reintroduce the characters as if, like, you know, I doubt, like, they're gonna, I don't know how to explain it, because I know you haven't watched Hawkeye, so it's kind of hard to, like, explain it without spoiling some things. But, like, you know, Daredevil come in, and he's already been Daredevil for however, you know, a handful of years or whatever. And it's not going to be, they're not doing a full reboot, but they're also probably not going to fully acknowledge what happened in the Netflix shows per se, if that makes sense.
I mean, yeah, makes sense.
So,
yeah.
I'm kind of interested to see. I think the final episode of She-Hulk came out today or maybe tonight, and now when that's all finally out, I'm gonna watch that, and I'll be all, like, caught up with everything. But I know he gets introduced in it, so I'm very interested. And they introduce another character in Hawkeye that was, like, a previous unknown that, like, ties in really heavily with Daredevil and Kingpin that I'm interested to see what they do with moving forward.
Awesome.
Yeah, so 2 thumbs up for Morbius. We're in.
I gave it one. I think that my I gave it 1.5 thumbs up.
I gave it 2 stars. It's as much as everyone's like online, especially all the people that, like, I follow on Twitter, were just like, it's the most tedious and boring movie I've ever seen, and I was like, it's fine. It's an
I've seen
average
worse, I guarantee.
movie.
Yeah. I think the thing that brought me the most joy is that afterwards, I was, like, looking, I don't remember what I was looking up about Morbius. I probably was trying to figure out, like, what the fuck was going on with the old boy there, and I started typing in Morbius, and it's, like, messed up now because I've, like, Googled so many things.
Same.
But the first thing that came up was Morbius. It's Morb'd. I'm beginning to morb or whatever, and that picture came up where it says, "Stand back, I'm beginning to morb," and I laughed so hard that I, like, started crying. And I think, to me, watching the movie was worth that moment of pure joy. And now Chris and I cannot stop saying, I'm beginning to morb.
What's really depressing is, based on the movies I've watched for 2022, this is maybe my 3rd highest rated movie of 2022.
I mean,
so
it's rough out there.
We're gonna get to end of year episode. I'm gonna be like, I love Jackass Forever, Beavis and Butthead 2, The Universe, Morbius.
I know.
So I think moving forward, because this is gonna come out after, and, like, ideally this will come out after we do the Final Demons episode. I think Katie and I are gonna do at least until we get tired of it for a while, just comic book movies, because this is like, outside of like some bands, this comic books, especially Spider-Man and like Batman, were the two that like I think we really bonded over when we first became friends. And like, so we've talked about like doing this for a while, and then it's just kind of, we started doing the Demons episodes, and ideally those would have been done by now, but just we've had to skip months here and there. So we're gonna do, I think next one we'll do, while they're still free, we're gonna do the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies.
Yeah.
And then I want to do, after that, I want to do, like, I think ideally what we'll probably do, because this was a unplanned fucking start to the comic book stuff, even though we've done a couple before, but
yeah.
Like our original idea is we were going to do, the first episode was going to be the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, and then I want to do the animated Dark Knight Returns movies after that. And then I think what we'll do after that is we'll just each pick a random comic book movie and just talk about them. So we'll do like double features or something, or maybe sometimes, depending on what it is, if there's something that like we feel deserves like the solo spotlight, or even like we'd probably do some of these like when, you know, a new MCU movie comes out or whatever. Yeah, the fact that we've talked for almost 2 hours about Morbius almost entirely is enough that I feel like any of this stuff we could probably talk about for a great length of time.
I know. I feel like whenever we did the No Way Home, like, granted, we obviously do always just go off on tangents about just like the MCU in general, because I feel like you have to, right? When we talked about, I didn't imagine that we would be talking about stupid Morbius for this long. But when we were doing the No Way Home one, I like literally could just like talk about it for hours. Yeah. Obviously we have, this is like 4 hours now that we've just talked about like the MCU and like whatever.
Mostly just basically, but I think Spider-Man alone.
Oh, like literally, yeah. And so I feel like whenever we did the No Way Home episode, we were just like, I was like, I really want to do all of them. And then we were kind of talking about how like they're not available, and like I was like, maybe I'll buy the DVD set or whatever. And then all of a sudden they were just like, oh yeah, coming to Netflix. And I was like, I feel like we manifested them, so it like couldn't have happened at a more perfect time. So now we just need, I think Amazing Spider-Man is on there also, which I 100% obviously also want to talk about, but I don't think the second one's anywhere. So
yeah, those are the two I've never seen, so at some point we'll get to those.
So yeah, I'm excited.
I watched the
talk about Spider-Man,
the 70s Doctor Strange movie this week. Or this the week as of when we're recording this. It'll be like a month from now when it comes out.
Right.
And it's very strange that at some point we will probably, because I guarantee that's on YouTube for free, but it's very weird. Because it was like, there's all of these Marvel ones that were like made for TV, like TV show pilots, that like just went nowhere, so then they just got released as like movies on like DVD or whatever, that are so weird and like kind of boring, because they're like hour-and-a-half TV shows setting up a universe that like never went anywhere. But like Jessica Walter is in it as like the bad guy, and I don't know, it's good but also extremely fucking weird and baffling, and Doctor Strange looks like a porn star in it. Because he's got like that like curly 70s hair with the big bushy mustache, and like it's very funny.
I whenever I was on Welcome to Geekdom, like Deanna's other podcast, I was talking, it was specifically about Batman and Dick Grayson, and we were kind of like talking about how their costumes, essentially, like, because there's like the Robin year one and then Nightwing year one or whatever, where he like quits like being Robin essentially, and he goes back to the circus, and that's where he had met like Deadman, and so his original Nightwing costume is like based off of Deadman's circus costume, which I never realized, and it makes so much sense.
It's got like the huge collar and stuff.
Yeah,
I love it.
Right. And then so in those comics, like those are newer. They've like modernized it a little bit so it doesn't look so crazy. But if you Google like some of the older versions where he's got like bell bottoms and like the collars like even crazier, and it's so weird. And we kind of started talking about how you don't think about how these characters have been around for like decades and decades and decades. And so it's like so easy to forget that there was like a Doctor Strange movie in the 70s, like, and then we didn't get one until like a couple of years ago that was like, you know, so it's just like really
there's a lot of really weird shit that like happened in like the 70s and 80s with Marvel movies, where there's like, I believe Thor and Daredevil showed up in like the Incredible Hulk like TV show movies, the Lou Ferrigno Hulk ones. There was a like the fucking what's his name, David Hasselhoff Nick Fury movie that was supposed to be a TV show, like it was a pilot for a TV show. There was like Captain America shorts that played before movies in like the 40s or some fucking ridiculous shit. There's so many, like there's like one of the ones we really have to do at some point is we have to do the Japanese Spider-Man movie.
Oh my gosh.
Where he's got like he's shooting guns and fucking doing weird shit. Albert Pune's fucking Captain America movie rules. Came out in like 1990. Howard the Duck.
Yeah, crazy. I haven't seen the Japanese Spider-Man, but they released some of the manga. They like translated it and released it here, and I love it so much. I think they just called it Spider-Man J, of course, but it's so cute. I love it.
Like all of the stuff pre-Blade is so weird. Like there was a fucking Tomb of Dracula like cartoon, like an hour and a half cartoon in 1980 that I've never seen. I need to.
I think the only thing that I've seen as far as like live action stuff goes that's older, and it's not even that old, I think, is that one Fantastic Four.
The Roger Corman
where the guy's
one.
like, it's clobbering time.
Yeah, that's one that I think at some point we have to cover too, because just there's that, and we should do that backed with there's a documentary about that movie called Doomed.
Shit.
That is really fascinating because the entire movie was made solely to keep the rights to the characters with no intention of being released, but no one told anyone actually making the movie that.
Oh my god.
There's also this really fascinating documentary about I think it's called The Death of Superman Lives. That is the story behind the Tim Burton Nick Cage Superman movie that never got made.
That sounds
that
insane.
Kevin Smith like wrote the fucking script for, and like it's, I'm so mad it never happened because you watch it and you're just like, every choice they were making sounded so stupid and ridiculous that you're like, I need this movie to exist.
I want it.
Nick Cage's Superman, baffling. But, like, I need it. He's got long hair. For some reason, he has a protective eco-skeleton suit, even though he's Spider-Man, or Superman. Like, there's so much weird shit. And they have all of this test footage of, like, Nick Cage in, like, the Superman costume that, like, has, like, flashing lights in it sometimes. It's so weird. But, like, I think there's, like, really fun stuff we could, like, watch to talk about that aren't specifically, like, the comic book movies too. Like there's really interesting like documentaries like those two out there that would be fun to like team up with like something else, you know, like the Fantastic Four and then that Doomed documentary, shit like that. I'm excited to talk about some of these. I want to do Dolph Lundgren Punisher. I've never seen the two like the Punisher or Punisher Warzone. I've never seen.
Is that the one with Thomas Jane?
One's Thomas Jane and one is somebody else, I believe. I don't think Thomas Jane is in Warzone, but Warzone's supposed to be like legitimately good.
Yeah. I've definitely seen two of them. The Thomas Jane is one of them, and I can't remember which other one it was. So we'll just see.
Yeah, the Punisher Warzone's the sequel to that one, and it's like Ray Stevenson. I'm not sure who that is. Plays Frank Castle. Because the one with Thomas Jane has John Travolta as the bad guy.
Oh my god, that's right. Oh.
Fucking.
I remember, it's been many a year, but I remember liking that movie.
Yeah, I never saw either of them, and I've seen people say that like the first one is like fine, but like a lot of people whose opinions I like trust have said like Warzone is legitimately pretty good.
Yeah, I'm looking at the cast, and I think
I think it's supposed to be more like gritty and kind of realistic as opposed to you know how the rest of that stuff was being made at the time, because that Warzone, it looks like, came out right after the Edward Norton Hulk movie, so they just started sort of MCU building.
When I typed in Punisher to like look at it on Letterboxd, I scrolled down a little bit because it's like Avengers Confidential, Black Widow, and Punisher, and it's like all in Japanese, and then you scroll down more, and there's 2 ads for something called Butt Attack Punisher Girl, and then Butt Attack Punisher Girl R, the battle between love and tragedy.
That Punisher Black Widow anime is pretty fun. Like, there was like that weird period where for some reason like Marvel made some deal with like an anime company and released like a couple like TV shows.
Oh, I've seen this.
They had like the Wolverine one. I think there was like an Iron Man one. I think Blade maybe. It's something else. They're pretty fun. They're very non-continuity comic book wise because they just kind of let them do whatever they wanted with those characters. But like, they're pretty fun. I've seen them in a while. They might not hold up as well, but I remember at least buying like the Wolverine, Iron Man, and Blade ones when they came out and enjoying them.
Yeah, I specifically remember the cover to the Wolverine one. Yeah. So.
There's like some like weird, like I haven't seen them in a while. Like they do like for a while Marvel was doing like motion comics of some of their storylines that were like pretty fun too. There's a lot of stuff. Like they got a lot of fucking output. When do these other Spider-Verse movies come out?
I don't know. I feel like they announced like another Into the Spider-Verse like kind of soon after the first one came out, and then I like didn't hear anything about it anymore, and I was like, uh-oh. Yeah,
I think they've announced, they got 3 announced now. Because there's Into the Spider-Verse, it looks like Across the Spider-Verse is the next one, and then Beyond the Spider-Verse was announced for 2024. So I'm guessing they're probably making like these 2 sort of back-to-back, and then spreading them out for a year. I didn't realize Oscar Isaac was in. Is he in the first in I still haven't watched Into the Spider-Verse. I need to...
It's so... we should do that as an episode, because I haven't watched it in a while, and I saw it in the theater, and it was like one of the best movies I've seen in theater. It's very, very good. It looks
like Across the Spider-Verse is going to be Miles Morales and... Oh, that's interesting. So it's going to be Miles Morales, and then Oscar Isaac is playing Miguel O'Hara, who's Spider-Man 2099, and that's who's teaming up in it. That's awesome. Very interested. It's got a pretty sick cast so far. Yorma from The Lonely Island is in it as the Vulture. Holy shit.
Amazing. Even better.
At least so far it looks like Vulture's in it. The Spot. Spider-Woman. Jake Johnson back as Spider-Man, like Peter Parker Spider-Man. Gwen Stacy Spider-Woman. Why would you not make her Spider-Gwen?
I don't know, because I think they've also rebranded her as Ghost Spider.
Just make her Spider Pool or whatever it was.
Gwenpool. Oh, I loved her. They, I don't know what was going on with her, because, like, when the Spider-Gwen comics first started coming out, I was buying the omnibus versions of them. Like, I bought the first standalone comic, because of course, and then I was buying the omnibus, and then they, like, rebranded it after a couple issues as still, like, Spider-Gwen, and then, like, halfway through that, they were like, oh, we're not going to call her that anymore. Her name is Ghost Spider. And I was like, what?
It's weird.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense, I guess, because, like, in it's not like people on the street are calling her Spider-Gwen. Like, that's her name in whatever, but then they, like, changed it, and I was like, I don't really see the point of doing that, but whatever. And I think they rebooted it a third time. I'm not really sure, because after that I stopped buying it, because I was like, I'm not going to keep doing this. You're not getting, you know, whatever. And then the Gwenpool was kind of just, I think, well, I thought that originally it was going to be like a one-off, but I think it's an actual series. I haven't read any of it, though.
I read, I think, the first 2 issues of it. I like... I don't really care so much about Deadpool specifically in comics. Like, I like when he pops up in things, but like, or is teamed up with somebody. But I like when they do one-off storylines. Like, they did maybe 2 sets of 4 issues each, so maybe I think 8 issues total of these books called Night of the Living Deadpool that were about the zombie apocalypse happens, and Deadpool's just kind of like something happens where Deadpool's like asleep and wakes up, and all of a sudden like the zombie apocalypse has happened, and realizes at the end of the first run of issues that because of his healing power he could heal everybody if he just lets the zombies eat him, and then he would be able to like heal himself. But what ends up happening is his consciousness just turns into all of these zombies, so now all of the zombies are also Deadpools, and that's amazing. Pretty fun.
Yeah, I'm not like a super... I was like kind of into Deadpool for a little bit, but more so crossovers. So like the first one I read was like when he did the crossover with Spider-Man, and I was like, okay, this is great. But then like he kind of became like a thing, and I was like, all right, that's enough.
Yeah, he became a
Harley Quinn, so I was done with that. But
all right, we'll be back next month with more Spider-Man talk.
Something else. 2 more hours.
Another episode on Morbius.
Right. Yeah. Let's do it.
All right. It's what was the thing from the meme you had? Oh, I'm beginning to morb.
Stand back. I am beginning to morb.
That's the new.
I'm morbing out.
That's the new sign off for these.
I hope you morb, but why?